Welcome back. Stream Queen here. I finally finished watching Peacemaker. Peacemaker Season 1 takes place after the events of The Suicide Squad and follows the anti-hero Chris Smith, aka Peacemaker. If you don't remember The Suicide Squad, that's okay, neither did I. It wasn't the greatest movie. Peacemaker is recruited into a top-secret government operation targeting a mysterious threat. Alongside a dysfunctional team of handlers and operatives, he's sent on a mission that isn't quite what it seems to be. In Season 2, Peacemaker is trying to move on after a traumatic event that took place in the first season. In this season, he finds a portal to what appears to be a better world where he could essentially live a better life. But of course, this perfect world is also not quite what it seems to be. At first glance, this series appears to be full of violence and dumb comedy, and it is, but Season 1 was surprisingly entertaining and had me laughing out loud a lot. I also did not expect to like John Cena so much in this. Season 2, well... Spoiler alert, I'm going into details that you may or may not want to hear, so act accordingly. If you didn't watch The Suicide Squad, basically Peacemaker dies in the movie, or so we think. Season 1, Episode 1 explains this away in the opening scene, where Chris is sitting in a hospital room talking to his doctor. They're looking at his chest x-ray, and the doctor tells him how lucky he is that after being shot and having a building fall on him, the only thing he has to have replaced is a clavicle. After hearing this, Chris then proceeds to ask the doctor in a very serious tone, "Can you maybe up the contrast on the x-ray to show the definition in my muscles? This makes me look like one of those guys who works out only thinking about bulk. I put a lot of time into my small muscle groups, and according to this, it was just wasted effort." I was never really a fan of John Cena as an actor before this series, but that line was hilarious to me, and his delivery immediately won me over. Right after leaving the hospital, he's recruited into a covert government operation. It was either that or he goes back to jail for all the murder of men, women, and children he committed in his pursuit of peace. His team members on this mission include two characters from the Suicide Squad, Emilia Harcourt and John Economos, and they introduce newcomer Leota Adebayo, who they nickname Ads. Harcourt is a highly skilled agent, the token tough girl. Economos plays the sarcastic and awkward tech geek, and Ads is the funny and lovable newbie, brand new to this whole Black Ops thing. Not officially on the team is also Chris's self-proclaimed sociopathic best friend, Vigilante, who, by the way, is my favorite character in this whole series. After a few episodes, we get some more backstory on Peacemaker, and we're also introduced to his dad, who is a white supremacist and a supervillain also known as White Dragon. To me, this guy will always be T-1000. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to watch more movies from the 90s. They also explain how Chris's brother Keith died when Chris was young, and that he was somehow involved in his brother's death. So now we have his origin story. So this team's mission, Project Butterfly, is to eliminate butterflies. And butterflies are a parasitic alien species who have taken over human bodies, kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They find out later on in the season that the butterfly takeover isn't as malevolent as they thought. Their goal of taking control of Earth comes from their belief that humanity is destroying the planet and destroying themselves, and taking over is the only way to save them. The plot was a little shaky, but this was a solid Season 1, very bingeable, very entertaining. The characters were pretty well written, and I enjoyed them all. And John Cena surprised me. He showed a lot of acting range. Peacemaker falls for the tough girl Harcourt, which wasn't surprising. But what I did not predict is that he would kill his own dad. I don't know how different this all is from the comics. I have commented before that I've never read comics, so I'm coming at this solely from someone who is obsessed with movies, TV, and storytelling as a whole. I know how some people feel about origin stories, or maybe it was just specific to Superman's origin story. But the way this series was approached, this is a great example as to why origin stories and background and explanations are sometimes necessary. A lot of people have never read a comic book and are being introduced to a character or a movie for the first time. You didn't have to watch Suicide Squad to watch Peacemaker. They did a great job at sprinkling in some flashbacks to fill in the blanks, and explained a lot through dialogue in a not so obvious way. That's just good writing in my opinion. But that was Season 1. Season 2 was another story. First of all, I have to mention this because it bothers me so much. A few episodes into season 1, there's a scene where Ads says something like, "Why don't they just call the Justice League to handle this?" Fast forward to the season 1 finale. In the last scene, after the team takes out all the bad guys and wins the fight, 4 Justice League members appear. So this was obviously them showing up late to the game. Superman and Wonder Woman are just kind of lurking in the shadows, but they obviously meant that to be Cavill's Superman and Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. The other 2 were Ezra Miller as the Flash and Jason Momoa as Aquaman. And all 4 of these characters are in that scene, but only Aquaman and the Flash have actual speaking parts. And it's wasted on a stupid joke. Now here comes the season 2 recap, the previously on Peacemaker scene. It starts to recap everything from season 1, but it gets to the scene where Ads references the Justice League. And they change her line to say, "Why don't they just call the Justice Gang to handle this?" And just like that, they change the last scene of the season 1 finale. Now who shows up in that last scene? The Justice Gang. Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific. And lurking in the shadows is Superman, who we all know is now David Cornsweet, along with Supergirl, I think. I get that season 2 was meant to be a follow-up to the new Superman movie, and obviously everyone in that last lineup is or is going to be recast. Got it. But you're just going to pretend that didn't happen? You have to give the audience some credit. I basically watched both seasons back to back. So I'm just looking around like, did they just do what I think they did? Why even bother to do that? You could have just left that whole scene out of the recap and everything would have been okay. We all still know this is a new DCU Gunn. Anyway, already off to a bad start, but whatever. So Peacemaker is still reeling from having just recently killed his dad. Episode 1 starts out with Peacemaker desperately wanting to join the Justice Gang. And he sits for an interview with the hiring team, which consists of Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Maxwell Lord, who was played by James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn, by the way. This scene was pretty funny. I actually like Guy Gardner in this, a lot more than in Superman. Hawkgirl was still... Well, the job interview didn't work out. Chris storms out and he goes to seek comfort with Harcourt, who, if you remember, he's in love with. That also doesn't go well. So now he's spiraling and he starts drinking and doing drugs and partying. I probably could have done without the whole naked orgy party scene. Seemed a little much. In a drunken stupor, Chris goes through the portal door into the other perfect world, where not only are his brother and father still alive, but they appear to be a loving family. And the Peacemaker in this world appears to be loved by everyone, including Harcourt. While he's there, he ends up killing the Peacemaker from that world. And you can see where this is going. He ends up briefly living in that world and taking over the other Peacemaker's life. His friends come to the rescue, and then plot twist. They all find out that this perfect world is really a world where the Nazis won the war and white supremacists are the norm. So what did they do right in season 2? They added Tim Meadows to the cast. He added a certain charm that was missing. That whole bird blindness thing. And I love that Judo Master had a bigger role this season. The banter between him and Economos was gold. And this might sound a little morbid, but the scene where Peacemaker and Vigilante are cutting up the other Peacemaker into little parts after he kills him, that scene was fun. But I'm also a huge Dexter fan, so that was right up my alley. And Vigilante meeting other Vigilante. That was priceless. Now, what did they do wrong? First, that stupid scene in the recap. It was unnecessary. You could have just left that part out. It added no substance to the plot. We all know what's going on. And I usually don't like to see actors from other prominent roles cross over into different universes, and I know that's petty. For example, Sean Gunn, who played Kraglin, and Michael Rooker, who played Yondu in Guardians, and Frank Grillo, who played Rumlow in the MCU, especially if the writing and the portrayal of the character are not done extremely well. Michael Rooker is incredible in everything he does. I loved him in The Walking Dead, and I liked him as the Eagle Hunter Red Saint Wild. But Gunn and Grillo were just... Maybe it was just the writing, but I wasn't blown away. That wasn't the only example of bad writing. That romantic lunch with Harcourt scene, that was so cheesy. Lex Luthor makes a cameo in episode 6. And the acting was still subpar. It was like watching a table reading. What did this add to the series? Are there actually people out there that got excited about that 2-minute scene? As you might have guessed, I'm not a fan of this Lex Luthor. He doesn't really give off genius supervillain vibes to me. He spends way too much time telling you what a genius he is. And here's a hint. If you have to tell someone how cool you are, you're probably not cool. There's also a part near the end of the season that Keith and Chris's dad from the other world find out that Chris killed the other Chris. And Keith is in a rage. He's furious. And he's ready to kill Chris. But their dad is just basically like, no, I believe this guy didn't kill him, on purpose. It's all good. What? I'm not trying to agree with either of these Nazis, but I actually think Keith is having the correct reaction to finding a doppelganger in his house and then finding out that he killed his brother. Bad writing, that's all this is, just bad. What really put the icing on the cake was the ending. So Vigilante ends up killing the dad. But Bizarro Keith lives, and then Rick Flag Sr., in cahoots with Lex Luthor and as payback for Peacemaker killing his son, ends up trapping Peacemaker in another dimension and basically closes the door to that dimension. All this seems like the perfect setup for Season 3, right? But there is no Season 3. That's it. No more Peacemaker. Why would you end it like that? I'm so frustrated. The only thing I can think of is that maybe they'll explore Peacemaker trapped in another dimension further in the next DC movie or something. At least I hope that's what they'll do. Anyway, marking this one down as another disappointment. DC needs to get it together. Let me know what you thought of Peacemaker. Until next time, my friends.